The romanticized version of what it's like to be an artist is what you often see on the internet. Constant motivation, pretty drawings each time, and tons of free time to dedicate to drawing as if that's the only thing that we could possibly do in our free time to be worthy of being called an artist. To be quite honest with you, that line of thinking had been keeping me discouraged this year, as I found myself uncharacteristically unmotivated for doing art. I've been constantly tired from the abundance of stressful things coming my way, unable to find any new stories to breathe life back into me. And of course, I've been feeling immense self-pressure, feeling guilty for struggling or being tired. It felt like I was failing at dealing with the life's challenges, and that's exactly the state in which the most special article I've ever read had found me, and it blew me away. It was all about one of my favorite manga authors ever, a person so successful in what they do that their franchise is still raking up crazy numbers in the box office in cinemas years after the manga's conclusion. And guess what they were talking about? Failing, and failing even more. But that's not what made the article special per se. Every successful person had to struggle once upon a time. What I truly want to pass on to you today, my dear viewer, is their secrets for keeping their head up during times of struggle and making the best out of every failure. Welcome to Revship Tea, and get your notebooks and pens ready, because these 4 steps will change your mindset forever. So, as I just mentioned, the person we're going to be talking about was a big fat loser before they became one of the most successful people in their field. But what I truly mean when I say they were a loser is that their first manga was rejected. Ghosted even, because the weekly Shonen Jump editors didn't bother sending any reply. They said so themselves in their 2022 interview with the Shonen Jump, in fact. They started their tale off by telling the magazine that they were born in a rural area and would mostly draw with pencils and notebooks. Thus to say, working with G-pens and ink was alien to them before they started to draw their own manga. And sheer enthusiasm didn't help. In fact, they barely have any memories of drawing their first manga all summer long. The author only remembers the sense of shock and crushing defeat they felt at the insufficiency of their skill. Their backgrounds were lacking, and they didn't enjoy putting so much time and effort into them. They wanted to draw characters, not boring backgrounds people barely noticed. Their inking sucked too, but what's interesting is that this person says that even 25 years later, they still never managed to ink better than the sketch. Talk about relatable! Overall, it just felt like their time got wasted like garbage, and that it was a huge hassle. Especially since the gap between the desired image and the real one was so large. The artists themselves attributed the rejection of their first manga-making attempt to the low skill of their artwork. However, as the goat of comedy that they became known as later into their career, they also teach us the first lesson of overcoming failure mangaka style. That is, take your failures with humor. In this person's case, here's what they had to say. I assumed the postman just died while delivering my draft. I tried my best to fake it and accept it to avoid being completely devastated. Despite feeling no sense of accomplishment and thinking, man, I might not be able to make it as a manga artist, they didn't give up. With their same signature humor, they decided that the Jump editors must have been pretty incompetent if they couldn't see their talent. So the next time, they'll shorten the story to make it easier for them to read. And herein lies the second secret. Be thoughtful about your work. While their first draft was mostly created just to test things out, and they admitted that they were kind of doing things at random, failure became their teacher at adapting towards the needs of the medium. In the interview, they emphasized the importance of really analyzing yourself and your audience, because a comic on a tight deadline must A. be tailored with the viewer in mind for maximum understanding and immersion, B. delivered on time, which means focusing on your artistic strengths and often sticking to what's easier to draw. There's simply too little time to properly improve on your weaknesses, so the primary focus shifts. Making a manga on your own teaches you well how to use all kinds of clever and sometimes even cowardly methods, as they said. And C. knowing when to stop, because with a deadline, you can't just keep redrawing and redoing everything. You just sit in silence and draw, even if you are worried the plot's too boring or the art looks off, and submit on deadline no matter how much you want to change something. You can be running to the drawing board each time you stumble, they emphasized. Which is kind of cryptic of them when they famously went overboard with the deadline for the final chapter of their magnum opus, but I think it further proves their humanity instead of being a godlike, perfect artist. We all are kind of lazy and cryptic, and it's good, because if we weren't, we'd be robots. But if you think their second project was all magically smooth sailing from there, think again. They actually spent 6 whole months on that one chapter. And yes, later that one shot would go on to win an award because of how great it was. But initially, it took a lot of time to draw, redraw, and redraw again. Thinking about the viewer is one component, but actually adapting your skill set to a new way of thinking is time consuming as well, and takes lots of patience and concentration. And I think there's a third lesson to be taken away from here. There's something we got robbed of with the progress of gadgets. That is our ability to stay in touch with our reality and thoughts without needing a distraction. To learn, live, and draw in the moment like all of those great old school mangaka did before our brains got corrupted by phones and dopamine. I think this mangaka in part also succeeded so much because they didn't spend their days on YouTube mindlessly watching a video when what they really wanted to do was to draw. They had one manual by Akira Toriyama, their dream, and their brain. In the duration of those 6 months, they'd learn, make mistakes, write down what they learned from those mistakes. They'd write down their observations and pieces of analysis again and again and hang them up everywhere in the house. Scientifically, that's already smart since writing with our hand is proven to increase memorization, but it's even more genius to be so focused and undistracted. Though I'd be a liar if I said it didn't make me annoyed just how much more difficult it is to focus nowadays. Back then, it was pretty peaceful. A TV or a book to distract you, a game console if you're pretty well off. I had actually started writing this script months ago, and I'd been since on my journey to quitting my phone, but it's pretty much impossible to do that to the fullest nowadays. Everyone expects you to be available or online at all times, on your phone, and that's quite sad, just how addictive that metal thing in our hands can be. But just because you might fail at something doesn't mean you'll never succeed, nor does it mean you're supposed to beat yourself up over it. That's what the final lesson is about too. Embrace your failure. Be proud of it. At least, that's the advice this mangaka gives at the end of the interview. The day you will be satisfied with your art will probably never come. Or rather, once you are satisfied, that will be the end of it, so please continue drawing and struggling to your heart's content. Those are some beautiful words, but I'd be damned if they did not annoy me too. Just how cool must it be to be rich, wise, successful, and the funniest person with the funniest manga? Man, pick a struggle! Okay, jokes aside, I already knew that Hideaki Sarachi, the creator of Gintama, was a very wise guy, but still, I found so much inspiration in how grounded he is. I think it really shines through in his work too, just how much he enjoys life the way it is. To him, life is beautiful because it is this unglamorous thing full of overdosing on sugar, watching TV out of boredom, and then watching a local bum lose another job. He takes life slowly and enjoys it, and that might just be what makes him so nice to listen to. That's why, if you want to read that interview in full for yourself, it'll be available in the description box below. Check it out and please leave this video a like and subscribe to my channel to support me. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and I'll see you in the next one.